realize that hiding in the racks of your local thrift stores could be hundreds or even thousands of dollars of profit. Ordinary items that people are paying crazy amounts for online on platforms like eBay, Poshmark, and Mercari. Well, my name is LeeMeier, and I've made over $100,000 net profit picking up ordinary, everyday looking items and selling them online at a huge markup. In the beginning, I thought that I had to have access to big name brands, to luxury brands. And when I couldn't find any of those brands, I thought that I couldn't be successful. But thankfully, I learned otherwise. And what I'm doing is I'm uncovering the 30 ordinary, everyday brands that are selling for surprising amounts on online platforms. I'm showing you real sold items, exactly what to look for, and why they're selling for as much as they are. Stick around and I'll lay it all out here.
And the first one is Old Navy. Now, there's a lot of custom jackets that are selling right now. This is an example of a Taylor Swift one. It has all these friendship bracelets that have been added to it, as well as, I'm not sure if it's paint or how they actually did that on the back, but that jacket sold for $500. Another example of an Old Navy jacket that's been upcycled. It's Hello Kitty, and this one sold for $250. You can make out the Old Navy tag there up in the corner. Again, there's lots of these. I'm just showing you a few examples. This is another Old Navy. This is Philadelphia Eagles, and that one went for $195. Another one just covered in all kinds of different patches. There's that tag. That one sold for $150. And you might not be crafty, but there's certainly all kinds of items like that out there when you're sourcing. This is another Old Navy that's not custom. This is just a simple pea coat, but it does happen to be from a TV show called Scandal. And so those are what are called as seen on items. You're going to be seeing a few of those throughout this video. Let me go ahead and head back to that coat here for a second. That one went for $125. Now, Old Navy did make leather jackets for a while. So this is, real leather, not faux leather. And these can sell for, $100 or more. This jacket sold for $125. And then here's a pea coat. Now they're calling it vintage. I would not call this vintage based off of that tag. It looks newer. It says no longer available. Okay, I'll agree with that one. But this one still sold for $125 for that. And then this is an interesting one because this has a lace up neck. You're going to see this in several different items throughout this video. And this little tank top actually sold for $100. Now you do want to be careful when you're doing research like this because sometimes sellers will go and include information either in the description or you'll see some kind of conversation going on in the comments, or there will be additional pictures of other items. But this one does appear just to be for the one item, and I wouldn't doubt it given that lace up neck, because that is really popular right now, whether it's at a neckline or up the side of jeans. Just that lace up style is really popular. This is another custom one of a kind item. It's a maxi skirt where they actually took a pair of Old Navy jeans, turned it into a skirt, and put it says 22 pockets on it. That sold for $120. This is another as seen on item from Vampire Diaries, and this is just a little camisole tank top. It's got buttons up the front as well as lace trim around that neckline, and that one sold for $99. If you're looking for more items like this that have to do with pop culture as far as seen on items, but just similar items as well, then you're going to want to check out my brand new pop culture guide. I will leave a link to over here. This is another custom jacket. It's a little bit different where it doesn't have those patches. It just has some artwork on the back. It looks like painted on for a Johnny Cash fan. And that one sold for $90. Again, there's tons of these custom jackets. This is a jacket that's not custom, but it does have Sherpa lining. I did switch over to eBay for those of you paying attention. It does have a year on it. So I hear a lot of you that ask about dating. A lot of tags do have the date. Old Navy happens to be one of those brands. And that is a newer practice. This one, as far as just brands in general go, this jacket sold for $69. You'll notice some really good keywords in here of Sherpa, Y2K, trucker. So those are all really good keywords when it comes to that style of jacket. This is a pair of overalls. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on the tag. This is definitely an older tag. And then this is what those overalls look like. Not the best picture as far as wrinkles go and that sort of thing, but they sold for $63. And then this is a puffer coat, and it's actually a small. It does say water resistant. So that is a reminder that those types of features buyers are looking for and they'll pay a little bit more for. So that one, coat for a size small in used condition, sold for $60 with one bid on it. The next mass-produced brand is Forever 21, and there's a lot of interesting items that are selling for a considerable amount, particularly if they've done collaborations with other companies. And so this is actually a collaboration with Honda. I'll show you a little bit better picture of what this tag looks like, but this pair of pants went for $250 for Forever 21. So here's another Honda, and this is a jacket. There's a little bit better view of that tag where it says Forever 21, and then Honda, and it is a men's item. There's the back of that jacket, and that one sold for $70. Here's another example of a collaboration. This is Coca-Cola, and you'll see there on the tag again, there's Coca-Cola as well as Forever 21. You'll often see both brands on the same tag, although there are some cases where there will be two separate tags. And then that jacket sold for $150. This is a what I would call a penny lane coat. You can see the embroidery, all that fur trim. There's the Forever 21. It's actually an extra small. So a lot of you have been mentioning about sizes. And yes, I agree that those bigger sizes do sell. But when you have things that are in demand, it doesn't really matter the size. This jacket sold for $100. You're going to see boho there, velvet, faux fur, penny lane. So $100 for that for Forever 21. Another popular collaboration when it comes to Forever 21 is actually Hello Kitty. So any Hello Kitty items are selling for quite a bit. Some of them, for over $100. This is a set of it looks like velour track jacket, as well as the pants. That one sold for $112. Got another penny lane style coat there with that fur trim. Fur trim is really big right now, and this jacket sold for $100. Again, you're seeing penny lane there in the title, as well as a keyword goth and whimsy. So those are some really good keywords to be using. This is a butterfly tank top. Now there's lots of brands out there. By the way, just bonus tip, lots of other brands that have similar styles to this. There's that Forever 21 tag. By the way, if you see a material tag like that for any sort of brand, that's usually indicates an older item. And then that one sold for $90. And if you come across these from other brands, go ahead and pick them up because they're selling for, right around that $100 mark. This is another Hello Kitty item. It actually has a flaw there on the sleeve. There's what that looks like on the back. It's got Hello Kitty down the sleeve as well there. There's what that tag looks like. So it says Hello Kitty and Friends, crossed with Forever 21. And that one sold for $85. This is another collaboration. And this one is with Disney. This is, you can see the Disney there, and then Forever 21. And this is Mickey Mouse, and that one sold for $75. Now over on Poshmark, this is another as seen on item. This is from American Horror Story. Actually had to look that one up. AHS Murder House as seen on Violet Harmon. And this one sold for $450 for a Forever 21 item. And there's lots of this style that are selling for, $200, $300, $400. This is another good example of a really unique item. And because it's more unique, this one sold for $250 for this set. And there's not a whole lot of keywords in this one, but the seller did indicate that they wore it for a flight attendant interview. So that could be a really good keyword, just that flight attendant, because it definitely has that look. This is another Hello Kitty. This is a one-piece snowsuit. That one sold for $200. Another Forever 21 unique item, this kind of iridescent Moto jacket. There's the tag there, nothing special. And then that one sold for $165. This is a Toy Story. So this would be a Pixar collaboration. Disney Pixar, I believe, is what it says there on the tag. That one went for $150. Next brand that is mass produced is Aeropostale. Now, this is definitely an older item. This is what that tag looks like. You'll see that pilot there. And definitely some wear, some fading on this. That one went for $50 with 3 bids on that. Some of you have been asking, do I do auction? Do I do fixed price? Are these all, when the items that I show, are they all been sold on auction? No. If I point out, hey, there's 3 bids on this, that's an auction item. If I don't, it's generally a fixed price item. It will depend on the demand for the item. That's how you choose. So this is Aeropostale. This is, there's a hole there in the hood. This is a fur lined hoodie zip up. And this one actually sold for $180. They're using that keyword Y2K. So that, again, that is a really huge keyword right now. This is a pair of pants. I have it on this picture to be able to show you that hole. And then there is what that tag looks like. Definitely an older tag. And then there's a picture of the item. This is what they're calling a parachute style pant. This is very similar to a style that's really popular for Abercrombie. But this is, Aeropostale. That one sold for $63. If you come across these from Abercrombie, they're selling for closer to 100, maybe even 150 in some cases. So you're going to see, paratrooper cargo there for the keywords in that title. This is a jacket. I actually think I had one very similar, if not the same. That's what that tag looks like. I wish I would have kept it. It's got that fur trim, cargo pockets on the front. Definitely utility look. That one went for $85. There's lots of these from that similar style or with that similar style selling for right around that same price. This is a hoodie. It is fur lined. There's the tag there. You can kind of make that out. It's a size medium. And then this jacket sold for $76. So definitely a popular style, that fur trim. Another bomber jacket that's very vintage, and that one sold for $140. Over on Poshmark, got another one of these bomber style jackets. It's got a few patches on it. That one sold for $265. Pair of joggers, these went for $165, and this is a very popular style right now. There's quite a few selling for, maybe closer to that $100 mark. They will have those varsity lettering on it, and that's really what people are going for with those joggers. This jacket, another example of a fur trim hood, that one went for $100. Fur trim hoodie here that's a full zip. This one went for $100. Again, you're noticing that Y2K keyword. That is what that tag looks like there. This is another as seen on item. This is from Pretty Little Liars, and that one went for $80. So that's a good example of, just these as seen on items. This is another as seen on item. This is Elena Gilbert from that Vampire Diaries I mentioned before with the Old Navy. You can see those buttons there on the front. This little shirt went for $99. Again, Aeropostale, it's nothing special. Here's a tank top with kind of that similar style. Another as seen on Elena Gilbert, has those buttons there at the front. That one went for $97. Now, I've had a lot of people asking about how they can get more money for their items, or maybe they have items sitting, but they're not getting sold. And the number one reason is that the right buyers are not finding your items. This is why keywords are so important. Keywords in titles, descriptions, wherever you can put them, tags. And so I do have a poster keyword. This is designed to help you be able to write those titles with keywords that sell and to be able to do it in a matter of seconds. So I will link to this poster over here. This next brand that I'm going to be sharing with you is actually Charlotte Russe. This is another one of those butterfly style tank tops, and that one sold for $90. Again, they're using some good keywords in here, gypsy, as well as Y2K and 90s. This is another one of those penny lane style coats, and this one is from Charlotte Russe, and this one sold for $100. $120. Here's a really cute houndstooth print. There's that Charlotte Russe tag, and that one went for $45, but not so much, but still, pretty decent flip if you can pick that up for just a couple of dollars. This is a really unique set that's actually suede. Tank top as well as skirt, and there's what that tag looks like there. That one went for $50. Over on Poshmark, this brand is doing really well when it comes to shoes, and these ones sold for $242 for those stilettos. And this is another really good example where the seller just infused their listing with keywords like goth, Y2K. They have even more keywords down here in their description. Vamp vibes, that's a vampire, grunge, gothic, Y2K, 90s. They've got even more. And this little the dress, that one sold for $175 because they got it in front of the right buyers. This is another one of those penny lane coats. That one sold for $150. There's that Charlotte Russe tag for those of you wondering. This is a really common style of tank top that's selling for right around $100 to $150. It's beaded, and there are several different brands besides just Charlotte Russe, but this Charlotte Russe branded one went for $150. And then there are several of these that I saw selling, and these are like booty shorts is what you would call them here in the title. And these sold for $100. They are sequined. So again, it's not just this one pair, but there are several out there that have sold for pretty close to $100, if not at $100. This is a suede jacket. There's that lace up again, and this one went for $99. Next is another penny lane, but this is a kind of patchwork style jacket. That one went for $80. Next mass-produced brand is H&M. And with this is really interesting because there's several different types of items to be on the lookout for where they're selling for into the hundreds of dollars. This is an H&M conscious. That's a hard one for me to say, but this dress, it's definitely unique. And so that one went for $599. Now, H&M also does collaborations with big name designers, and those will sell for a few $100s. This is an example one. I'm not going to attempt the name on this. I'm not a fancy person, don't know all these luxury brand names, but this one did sell for $376. You'll see both the names on the tag. This is another, cross with a luxury brand. That's what that tag looks like there. So you'll see cross and then H&M, and then that little blazer went for $325. Got a coat here. This is actually over on eBay. That's that H&M tag there. See if I can get a better look at that. So you can kind of make out Mason Margiela on the tag up here, and then H&M down there. And I just clumped this in with Poshmark because this is an example of a designer label that's crossed with H&M. That one went for $299. It is a faux beaver fur. It's not even real fur, $299, and that one did have 2 bids on it. And then unique items when it comes to H&M. This is a bow closure blazer, I guess you would call it, jacket. That one went for $100. This is another cross with a higher end brand, Machino. This has Mickey Mouse on it as well. That one went for $100. And anything leather. So some of them will specifically say leather on the tag, like H&M leather. And this jacket, it has a Sherpa trim on that. That one went for $100. Got a down puffer jacket. So a reminder, with those higher quality fabrics, those will sell for more money. There it says H&M and then down feather. That one went for $100. Got a Stranger Things swimsuit. That one went for $100 as well. This is another example of a cross, and this is with South Park. There's several of these selling where it's just that fleece jacket. That's what the front of it looks like. And that one went for $263. We're over on eBay now. Got a leather motorcycle jacket. That one went for $201. Another Machino over here on eBay. That one went for $110. Another leather jacket. There's the tag there. So that one does not say leather. I think I do have one to be able to show you though, where the tag, calls out leather. That one went for 81, or, right on the brand label. That one went for $81 with 27 bids on it. This is a pair of leather pants, and this is the one where I believe that it does have leather here on that brand tag, so H&M leather. And if you see any of those, that's going to be a good indication that you're going to be able to get more money for that item. This pair of pants went for $90. And then a jacket here, not the best of pictures with this one, but it did sell for $100, and they're using a keyword in here of blogger favorite. It's another cross, and this is with Peanuts, so you'll see the Peanuts tag there, as well as H&M. It's got Snoopy there, and that one went for $71. Now, another mass-produced brand that can be worth a lot of money is Faded Glory, and that exception to the rule is those items that are vintage. If they're from the 70s, if they're Y2K era, those are selling for a lot of money. Now, the 70s items, those are not too common to come across, but this is a pair of jeans from the 70s. You can see it's got rainbow stitching there at the pocket as well as down the leg. That one did not have a brand picture, but a tag picture, but I will see if I can show one to you. That one went for $150 on eBay. This is a special case because this was worn by Princess Di, a sweater here. And again, that rainbow stripe was so common from the 70s. And then again, like Y2K era, there's that Faded Glory tag. That's what that vintage tag looks like. And that one went for $155. This is another vintage Faded Glory item. There's what the tag looks like right there. That is one of those kind of Penny Lane style coats. It does look like it kind of has ostrich feathers. That one went for $100 for that jacket. And then one of the other profitable items when it comes to Faded Glory are their shoes, and especially their sandals. So that's the tag on the inside. This is definitely a newer. This isn't from the 70s. This is Y2K era that we're talking. These are selling for right around that $100 mark. This one went for $99 on eBay. Here's another example of an item from the 70s. It's got the rainbow stripe up and down the front of those overalls, as well as a little bit there on those back pockets. Those went for $150 on Poshmark. Here's another Y2K era sandal. Those went for $120. There's the tag on the inside of those. And then here is a Penny Lane jacket. And there is what that tag looks like. Faded Glory, it says right there. That one went for $150. $155, I think is what that said. Another pair of sandals. It's got that flower cutout on it. Those went for $100. Now, they did do a little bit of keyword spamming, but you don't have to do that. So they said not Doc Martens. Poshmark doesn't seem to care about that. Other platforms do. This is an example of one where they did not keyword spam even in their description. Those still sold for $85 for those. This is a 70s jacket, and this one sold for $72. Let's see if I can get a good picture of that tag there for you. So that's what it says. That's kind of a 70 era tag when it comes to Faded Glory. Now, you're noticing a theme throughout this video is vintage items. That is one of the most lucrative niches to be selling in. And I do have an entire complete guide to selling vintage clothing where I give you 150 brands and items that are profitable for your business. We're talking a lot of money, knowing what to recognize, knowing how to spot these things. So I will leave a product card for the vintage guide here. All right, so we've talked about mass-produced brands, but we're going to move into more department store brands. And with this first brand, this is the brand called Worthington. Now, if you come across most items, they're not going to be worth a whole lot of money. But if you find these items that are the ones that I'm going to be sharing with you, such as faux fur or leather items, these can sell for quite a bit. So this animal print one went for $100 on eBay. Got a leather jacket here. It says genuine lambskin, and there is that Worthington tag on there. It is a 2X, so that does help get a little bit better price for this item. And that one went for $109 on eBay. Trench coat here. I believe this is another big size. This is a little bit different tag, older tag maybe. It says made in Poland. So that's kind of interesting. And then that is a size 20, it looks like, which is equivalent of a 2X. That one went for $68. Here's a Worthington tag that's probably more similar to what you're seeing currently. This is actually from a really kind of cool military style jacket. It is a wool or wool blend. Let's see if it said there on the tag yet. A wool blend on that one. And then that one sold for about $51. Over on Poshmark, this is another lambskin jacket. That one went for $225. And it does have that fur trim around there, so genuine lambskin there. This is another jacket that has actually rabbit fur lined hood. That one went for $140. There's what the tag looks like on that one. And this is kind of an interesting, almost woven looking jacket. And there is the tag. Let me see if I can actually get a material tag here. So this is not leather, but it is. Oh, it actually is genuine leather, and then it does have rabbit fur, and so that one went for $140. This is another leather item. It says 100% genuine leather. That one went for $127. Got another leather set here of a skirt and jacket. That one went for $90.
And real quick, all of the tools and the resources that I've been mentioning throughout this video, I actually give free to members inside of the Empowered Reseller. Plus, we do deep dives every single month into proven clothing niches so that you can source and sell by style, not just by brand. And you're not trying to figure it out all on your own. You get a clear path, help when you need it, and a really supportive community of people doing this together. To see the current month's deep dive topic, to join us, and to get all of these resources for free, the link is in the description below this video, or you can go to empoweredreseller.com.
The next kind of department store brand that usually doesn't sell for a whole lot is Croft and Borrow, but there's lots of items that are selling for well over 50, even pushing that $100 mark. And there's tons of these style sweaters selling, and these are very similar to a brand that's called Coochie that sells for a few $100s. And so with this sweater, let me see if I can get a picture of the tag there for you. So Croft and Borrow, that sweater went for $120 on eBay. Here's another one. The tag is a little bit different on that one. To zoom in on that for you. This one's definitely brightly colored, but still kind of that same Coochie style. This one went for $100. And then similar story with this as what you saw with Worthington, those leather fabrics, those are going to sell for more money just because of that leather. So with Croft and Borrow, you're usually going to see leather there on the brand tag. So that's an easy way to be able to spot those. And that jacket went for $75. Here's another one, Coochie style, but it's from Croft and Borrow. That one went for $70. I do want to point out some really good keywords that are being used here. Biggie, the rapper, as well as Cosby, as in Bill Cosby. So those are very common keywords when you're listing that style of sweater. These are just, basic pair of leather boots. It's got that stacked block heel. Those went for $60 because it is a style that's really in demand right now with that block heel, the square toe. It is kind of a Y2K look. So $60 for those. And then this is one where I want to point out the types of fabrics that are being used because this can affect the sale price as well. So this is a sweater. I'll show you what it looks like here in a second, but it's actually 45% silk. It's got a little acrylic, 8% wool, a few other materials in there, fibers in there, and it does have kind of this Nordic style print or a weave as well as polar bears on there, and that one went for $55 on eBay. So unique items definitely sell. This is an older Croft and Borrow tag and definitely a vintage item, kind of a rainbow plaid sweater here knit. That one went for $50. Over on Poshmark, I got another pair of these kind of chunky Y2K heeled boots, and those went for $98. If you're looking for more styles that sell, you're going to want to make sure to check out my Keywords That Sell guide. It goes over all of the styles, aesthetics that are really trending right now. Now, got another Croft and Borrow coat here. This one went for $95 for just that coat. I believe it is a set with that scarf. There were several of those selling like that. This is another example where there's lambskin leather. Those went for $95 just because, it's a nicer, more desirable material. Another leather jacket here, that one went for $75 on Poshmark. The next kind of department store brand is one called St. John's Bay. Now, there's a lot of confusion in listings when sellers go to list items between St. John and St. John's Bay. They are two different brands. St. John's, that's a very nice brand. St. John's Bay, usually not so much. The items don't usually sell for very much money. It is a more lower end brand than St. John, but there, definitely are items that are selling for a lot, which is what I'm showing you. So this one is a leather jacket, and this one sold for $134. This is another really interesting one, and this is very actually popular. There's tons of these selling, and this was very similar or almost the same as what was worn on Friends. So you're seeing kind of a floral embroidered design, toggle buttons there, that sold for $100. So you're seeing here in the title, it says Phoebe and Friends. So those are the keywords to use with that style, or really anything that's pretty similar to that. This is an example of a leather jacket. So this is, just a black men's jacket. It is a size 3XLT, which is a 3XL tall, and that's always going to get you more money. So that's the other thing to look for when it comes to these lower end brands. When you can find those bigger sizes or those tall sizes, those are going to sell for more. So that one sold for $100. This is another really interesting one, and there's several of these selling. So this says St. John's Bay and then Big Mac flannel, and it does say here on the tag made in USA, so that's a really good clue, that's a vintage item if you come across that, because not a lot of things these days are made in the USA. And this one sold for $75, and there's lots of these like this similar that are selling for right around that same price. This is definitely an older tag, SJB there for St. John's Bay. You can kind of make it out here across the top of the tag as well. This is a color block jacket. That one went for about $58 on eBay. Here's a newer style tag. This is kind of pretty current of what you probably have come across before. This is what the coat looks like. Longer coat, that one went for $375. There's another kind of aviator style leather jacket. That one went for $157 on Poshmark. Another one of those Phoebe Friends jackets that went for $150. There's that tag there for you. And another long jacket, that one went for $150. Here is another tag there real quick, and that is definitely that Penny Lane fur trim style, $126 for that jacket. This is an interesting one because it's washable suede, and then this is what the jacket looks like. It's hooded. That one sold for $116. Got a denim jacket with that fur trim. That one went for $99. So this brand can definitely be some good money when you know what to look for. This is just a wool blend pea coat. That one sold for $99. And then this suede jacket, that one went for $95. Some more department store style brands that are selling for quite a bit when you know the right items to source. The next brand is Sonoma. This is a leather jacket. Hopefully you saw the tag that was just there. So it does say Genuine Sonoma Jean Company, and that is a leather patch for that tag. This jacket sold for $120. You're noticing some good keywords: bomber flight, aviator jacket there in the title. And this is a pair of jeans, definitely Y2K style. There's quite a bit of dirt, black marks down the side of those. Those went for $75 with one bid on them. Real quick tag picture here, Genuine Sonoma Jean Company is definitely an older item, woven item. And these, there's quite a few of them selling. That one sold for about $50. Got a pair of Y2K style boots here. There's what the bottom looks like. You can see it looks like quite a bit of wear on these boots, and those sold for about $50. Over on Poshmark, got a leather jacket here. This one sold for $140. You're noticing 90s there in the title. And this is a upcycled item, reworked item. Here's the tag there, and it's just a jacket where some band patches have been put here across the chest and sleeves. That one sold for $120. This is another kind of upcycled, homemade, designed one. This is, you can see there Sonoma. It is a 2X, so again, that does help this sell for a little bit more. And then it's got these coffee mugs on this. This is from Fight Club. Like this is the picture here of Brad Pitt wearing that, kind of similar. And that's just kind of what they based their design off of for this. Now, bonus tip, if you do happen to come across this exact bathrobe, these can sell for a few $100s, but this person got creative, put some felt there on those for the mugs, and then that sold for $100. So a good reminder to keep your eye out for those one-of-a-kind items. Got a pair of sandals here, definitely that Y2K style. They did put Dr. Martens here in the description. I guess that's one way to do it, and those sold for $80. Got a jacket here. Again, it has that kind of woven look to it. That one sold for $68. The next kind of department store, a little hesitation there with department store, because this is one that is sold at Walmart as well. And this is the brand Chaps. So this is a Ralph Lauren brand. This is one of their lines, but you want to be really careful with the items that you're sourcing. So I did pull up just all Chaps brand. I actually don't think I filtered down to the brand. Let me go ahead and do that real quick. But you can see that these items, a lot of times they don't sell for a whole lot of money in most cases. So I got an example right there, that button-up shirt, sold for $3.25. Here's another, that same button-up. That's what that tag looks like. So it says Chaps. You're not seeing any kind of mention of Ralph Lauren. So that can be a good indication that that might not sell for quite as much money. So again, $3 for that item, which is, you're not making anything off of that. The items that are selling for the most money are generally, as a general rule, and I'll show you the exceptions to this, are tags where it says Ralph Lauren on it. So these are going to be older tags. They're going to be, more vintage items. So it says Chaps, Ralph Lauren there on the tag. There's several examples that are like this. It says hand knit, and this is a really unique sweater. So camping, there's a fly fisherman out there in the river. And let me see if I can get a price on that. That one sold for $211. This is another one where it says Chaps and then Ralph Lauren. This is a little bit newer item, and this is a leather jacket. That one sold for $139. This is one where it does not specifically say Ralph Lauren. There's the tag there, but it is leather. And that jacket sold for $112. So reminder to keep your eye out for those leather items. This is when it's a little bit hard to make out. Definitely an older tag. It says Chaps, and then down below it says by Ralph Lauren. And this is a trench coat, and that one sold for $96, almost $100. This is one where it just says Chaps, but it's a men's suit jacket. That one sold for $100. This is another one where it says Chaps, Ralph Lauren, and just a denim jacket. That one went for $80. Got another one here where, it says Ralph Lauren there on the tag. This is a vintage rugby style shirt. That one went for $82. Over on Poshmark, Chaps Ralph Lauren, you can see there on the tag, that coat sold for $120. It is wool. So I want to point that out. These backpacks, if you come across these, there's a lot of these selling for right around that $80 to $100 mark. This one went for $90. Got another more vintage one where it says Chaps Ralph Lauren and then Shetland 100% wool. And it's got moose across it. That one sold for $75 on Poshmark. And if you're looking for brands that always sell for a good amount of money without any of the guesswork, you're going to want to check out my complete library of big money brands. It's almost 800 brands that consistently sell with an average sale price of over $20. Most cases, substantially more than that, but that's just an average across all items for the brands that are included in those guides. This is Apartment 9. So this is one that I would kind of lump in there with a department store. This is that label there, and this is a jacket. So it looks like a wool blend, and this jacket went for $55. Got a men's suit jacket there, and that one sold for about $80. Can kind of make out a little bit of the tag there. There's one where it says Apartment 9 and then wool, and this is a tweed coat. That one sold for. All right, the price disappeared on this. eBay does this every once in a while. I do not know why. So I did pull this one up, and this one sold for $75. If you're wondering how I did this and how you can do it from mobile, I will link to that up here to be able to find sold prices, even when a best offer is accepted. So I do cover how to do that in another video. This is Apartment 9, and this is 100% cashmere. So reminder to look for those special types of fabrics, higher quality materials, and that sweater sold for $70 just because it is cashmere. This is a one-of-a-kind upcycled item from the Apartment 9 brand, and then they did put Rolling Stones on it. That one sold for $128. If you go through the comments here, it looks like it was bundled with another or a flannel button-up shirt. So that could be why it sold for a little bit more, but still, a decent price for a brand that otherwise doesn't sell for much. Now, this is one that is really interesting because this sold for quite a bit, and you're going to notice that they put those keywords here in the title rather than the brand. So rather than use up the title for Apartment 9, they actually just really loaded the title with keywords that sell: boho, folk, romantic, Victorian, steampunk, velvet. It's all there in the title. Jacket, it's there in the title. So this seller did a really good job on this one. And that one sold for $100. That's how it pays. That's why it pays to use those keywords. You're going to notice more keywords here in the description. They used Renaissance Festival, so that would be another one to put in there. This is a plus size. So that's a reminder for those plus sizes will generally sell for a little bit more. And this one looks like just the one item. I cannot tell that there was any, other items bundled in with that. And that one sold for $80. Got another cashmere sweater here. That one went for $75. We're going to flip over to what I call fast fashion brands. And this first fast fashion brand that we're going to be looking at is Shein, and these are really interesting sequined pair of boots. Those sold for $55. So don't overlook even that brand. That is fast fashion. There is what that brand tag looks like, and this is a graffiti style jacket. That one sold for about $40. Got a pair of jeans here, and these are definitely a retro style. They're not vintage, but they're just kind of made to look like that. That one went for about $35. Over on Poshmark, got a pair of pink cowboy boots from Shein. These, if you read the description, they're actually have been painted, so they're not even original. And those went for $52. A really good keyword here probably would have been Barbie. I would have put that in there for a keyword. Another pair of shoes here. This one went for $45. So a reminder with Shein, keep your eye out for those shoes. And this is a pair of cowboy boots that are white. Those sold for $45. Now, if you're new to reselling or you're looking to get started, you're going to want to check out my Ultimate Reseller Starter Kit. It has literally everything you need to get up and running and bringing in sales quickly. The next fast fashion brand that we're going to be covering is a brand that's called Fashion Nova. And with this one, you're going to want to look for dresses that are unique. Really, with these fast fashion, it's about items that are trending, items that are unique, items that are unusual. This one sold for $90 on eBay, and they're more formal dresses. Those are what is selling for the most money. You can make out that Nova tag there. That one is Nova Luxe. If you saw that, it's also a plus size 1X. And this looks like another one where the price disappeared on me. So I pulled it up here, and that one sold for $55. And their shoes, they make a lot of really unique shoes. So these are kind of a bandana handkerchief style. That one went for $65. Another pair of shoes has got lace up peep toe. Those went for $100 on Poshmark. Another formal dress that sold for $100 on Poshmark. This is a denim and Sherpa coat. That one sold for $100. Here's another formal gown. That one went for $100 as well. Another fast fashion brand, Boohoo. So with this, you definitely want to know what to look for. I do have this sorted by price, highest to lowest, and there's not a ton selling for probably over $50. The majority of items that are selling $50 and higher are their men's items. This is an example of a jacket here. It's definitely shiny. Not the best picture there, but you can kind of make out that shiny. That sold for $80. Another men's item. I'll show you a little bit better tag picture of what their men's tag looks like. That one went for $85. And here's a little bit better on that tag. It says man and then Boohoo man down below. This is actually a set denim jacket as well as the matching pants. Those ones went for $65. And on Poshmark, this is a bag. This one sold for $63. Purses can be some really good money. And I do have a brand new poster that covers specifically bags. I will link to it over here. With Boohoo, you're also going to want to keep your eye out for those gowns. And this is one where it has those kind of large sequins. They used a really good keyword here of mermaid. So I think that fits this gown perfectly. That one sold for $150. Got a jacket here. Again, you're looking for unique with these fast fashion items. That one went for $100. This suit set went for $85. I think this would have been a really good one to use the keywords Legally Blonde or Barbie with that. So $85. And then a jacket here that's denim. It's got that fur trim on that. That one went for $85. Another kind of faux fur jacket, a keyword that could have been used here is rave. That one sold for $80. Rue 21. Now this is a butterfly sequined top. And I believe that somebody, a company made these for several different brands. So you'll see this similar design for Rue 21, Charlotte Russe, Wet Seal, other similar brands like that. And they're all selling for right around that $100 to $150 mark. So that one sold on Poshmark for $150. Now, one that I didn't realize with Rue 21, this is brand new to me. This is what it was seen on Vampire Diaries, Elena Gilbert. So you'll see that there in the title. I'll show you some other examples of this, but this is basically just a thermal knit shirt. So you can see there that pattern, that thermal knit, just, a basic long sleeve shirt. That one sold for $145. And then here is that picture where you can kind of see that on the character. And this is another one that sold on Poshmark in that similar style for $100. Got a coat here. And with any of these lower end brands or, quote unquote bad brands, the items that are going to sell for more money a lot of times are the, what you're going to pay for more in the store, which are usually bigger items like coats, jackets, even jeans. So that one sold for $100. This is another of one of those Elena Gilbert thermal shirts. It's a different, pattern obviously than what she wore, different color, but that one sold for $80. Got another one of those same kind of floral. That one sold for $69. And then a mini skirt here. So this is, it says micro, mini, and then grunge, retro, 90s, Y2K. So they hit on some really good keywords there in their title. And it's just, a little mini skirt. That one sold for $69. Let me see if I can get a good tag on this for you. I may need to grab that off actually on another item. There is an example on jeans, what that looks like. This is a leather coat. So like I mentioned, those leather items, those are usually going to sell for a little bit more. This tag is a little bit different. So it does say Rue there in the center and then 21 and then leather. And that is 100% 100% genuine leather. And this little black coat, that one went for $58 on eBay. A pair of dress pants here. There's a good example of what that tag looks like for Rue 21 on a lot of their items. It looks like there might be possibly a little bit of a stain there. And then that pair of pants actually sold for $50. I do want to point out some of the keywords that they're using: Y2K, classy, low rise. They've got some more keywords down here in their description that's going to really fit with that item. So casual, preppy, light, academia, that's another really good keyword to use. This is another sale from eBay, and this is just a suede jacket. You can see it ties there at the front, and then that one sold for $40. The next brand is Romwe, and I could be saying this one wrong, but this is what the tag looks like. I'm going to see if I can zoom in on that a little bit closer. ROMWE. And if you come across any of these jeans, this look, this trend is really hot right now, and items like these are selling for quite a bit, as well as they're selling pretty quickly. So on eBay, that one went for almost $57. Got another one of these similar pairs of jeans here. You can see they're really wide leg. They are using some what I consider spam keywords in here of other brands like Jinko and Trip, but they did go ahead and use goth, which could be another good keyword for this item, and that one went for $45. If you're looking for other things that sell quickly and for a lot of money, make sure you check out my fastest brands as well as my most profitable brands, and I do have a bundle of that I will link to over here. This is another pair of Romwe jeans, and I remember having a pair that was something like this. I know that it had stars on it, so this is another trend that I would be on the lookout for. That's kind of from that Y2K era. Those ones sold for about $30 on eBay. Another button-up shirt here. This brand in particular isn't selling, for super high on eBay. They're selling for a little bit more over on Poshmark. See if I can get out of this, but this one did sell for about $30. If I can close out of there, $31 there. This is a dress that has skeletons on it. You can see the tag there. And that dress sold for $30. Got another shirt here. I believe this one sold for $30, but you can see it's got those bell sleeves. It's velvet. It's got that butterfly up at the top. There's kind of a look-alike in a different color, and that one sold for $28. Again, some really good keywords with this of velvet, whimsy goth, Y2K. Again, use those keywords. Some of you have been asking where to use keywords. You're going to use them everywhere that you possibly can. Title, description. If you can put them in item specifics like on eBay, then you're going to put those there as well. And you'll see that they went ahead and used those in the description as well. In all of those pull downs on eBay, I know eBay has a ton of pull downs for item specifics. Try and fill out as many of those as you can, and you can put in multiple keywords when it comes to styles and aesthetics. Over on Poshmark, this brand is doing a little bit better. This is a prom dress, and this one went for $90. Got a couple of these jean jackets that sold for right around that $70 to $75 mark. You can kind of see they have a striped kind of almost tribal look to them. So $75 that one sold for, but there were others that were selling for right around that price range. This is one where it's got bunny ears or bear ears on it, and then that one sold for $65. So look for those unique items. This is just a blouse, and this is a plus size, so that can help when it comes to the sale price of your items. That one sold for $62. Again, those coats can be another really good thing to look for, coats and jackets. And then that one sold for $50 because it's a little bit unique style. They've got the keyword military as well as cape, because it's got that kind of cape around the shoulders there. This is a really cute pair of short alls from this same brand, Romwe, and this one sold for $50. The next brand is Pretty Little Things, and with this one, this is another one of those brands that you really need to know what to look for. It's not just everything. These specific things are selling for, substantially more money than most of their items. And so anything that has kind of this shaggy coat, furry coat, those are going to do really well. That is that Pretty Little Thing tag right there. And then that one sold for $57 on eBay. This is another sweater from the brand Pretty Little Thing. Definitely a unique sweater. And I think they used a really good keyword here of abstract. That one sold for $40 on eBay. Got another one of these fur jackets on eBay. This is one where it does say designed by Naomi Campbell. So they do have some items that are made by a certain designer, and those will usually sell for a little bit more money. And so that one's sold for $60 on eBay. Now, over on Poshmark, it's really interesting how the two platforms can vary. And on Poshmark, there are actually a lot of snowsuits that are selling for right around the $100 to $200 mark. So this is one that is in used condition. This one's sold for $190. I think I saw some new ones that are selling for over $200, but used condition, 100, 200, $100 to $200 range. This is another example of a snowsuit that went for $182. Dresses are also doing pretty well. So this is kind of a feather dress. That one went for $125 on Poshmark. Some interesting boots, and they did use diamante, basically diamond covered is what those boots are. You can see that there in the picture. And then that sold for $125. And then another one of those shaggy coats, that one sold for $100 on Poshmark. Again, another one of those dresses, that one sold for $100. Next brand is the Walmart brand George. Now, stick with me for this one here. There are some really good items when it comes to this. So you're going to see on this coat, it is 100% leather. So you will typically see that with their older items. This one sold for $45 on eBay. There's also lots of sellers who remake these shirts. And so it'll be a used flannel shirt. You can see there that it is George. And then there's been some bleach work done. And then there's an Elton John patch put on the back. And then that one sold for about $51. Here's another one that hasn't, had anything done to it. There's no bleach, there's no artwork. It's just a plain shirt. You can see the tag there. And then that one sold for $50 as well, which is crazy. Here's another one. This is actually 100% polyester. So it's actually a faux suede. It's not even, real leather or real suede. And this one sold for $68 on eBay. This is over on Poshmark now. And this is a button-up flannel shirt. For whatever reason, I'm not sure, this is new with tags. So I do want to point that out because almost everything I'm showing you in the video as, reseller is pre-owned, but I do have a couple of items that are new with tags. But I just want to point this out because Walmart actually can be a decent place to source for your reselling business, surprisingly. And I'll show you a couple other items. So this is another item that is George. And then this, it says $89. I'm not sure if it's different if it's sold in a Posh show, if the price is different, but there were several of these selling. And so this is just a pair of swimming trunks. The pictures aren't that great. I'm assuming they, did a little bit better job when they were doing their show. And so $89 is what it's showing for that price. I'm not exactly sure how that works again with the sale or with the show. This is another one on Poshmark. There's tons of sellers on Poshmark who are revising, upscaling, reworking these flannel shirts. So you can see it's definitely used. There's definitely wear to this shirt. You can see the George tag there. And then it has that patch on the back. And from, I believe, the Halloween movie, not a horror movie person, so I have no idea. But that one sold for $67. And there's all sorts of these. This one is Star Wars. That one sold for $60. Kind of same concept with this, where there's just that patch on the back. This is one where nothing has been done to. It's just an Aztec print. It's a fun print. And then that one sold for $52. You can see the tag there. It is a small. So a lot of times those bigger men's sizes do really well. So I do want to point out that that is a small and is still sold, for a pretty good amount for a Walmart brand. This is a pair of shoes, and I'm going to zoom in on this so you can see George and then memory foam. So the one thing that I'm noticing about a lot of these Walmart brand shoes is that if they have memory foam, they seem to be selling for a little bit more. That's the kind of the only rhyme or reason or sense that I can make out of that. But $50 to me seems like a pretty good amount for, something you could get at Walmart. This is one that's really interesting. Actually, these next couple, this was an interesting concept because this is actually a men's item. You're going to see that they did list it into the men's category, but they did style it for a woman. So you see the woman trying it on there, and I actually think that looks really cute. And so that one sold for $50. This is another one, kind of similar concept, where it was styled by a woman. I like that look, that oversized look, but it is a men's suede jacket. Again, one of those faux suede, 100% polyester. There's the tag on that one. And then that one sold for $50. Here's another leather jacket, that's genuine leather, men's bomber jacket, and that one sold for $45 on Poshmark. All right, this next brand is Time and True. This is a Walmart brand. And with this, you want to really be careful, just kind of go for those bigger ticket items as well as those newer styles. So this is a coat that sold on eBay for $44. Got another coat here, again, a newer style. One of the other things, again, I've mentioned this before, but I'll mention it again, that can really help is with the size. This one sold for $45. It is a size medium, so it's not a bigger size, but anytime you come across a bigger size, especially plus sizes, those can usually sell for a little bit more money. So that's just something to be on the lookout for when it comes to kind of these lower end brands. We got another coat here with that fur trim. This one is a 3X, so that does help that sell for a little bit more, and that one sold for $40. And then over on Poshmark, this brand seems to be doing a little bit better than on eBay. Now, it can be a little bit kind of hard to sift through a lot of garbage listings, or a lot of questionable, I should say. This is one, it says it sold for $100. It looks like a legitimate listing with measurements here. There's no kind of discussion going on if there's other items. There is, however, okay, that one, does it come with the shirt? Probably not. It's probably just the shorts. That's all it says in the description. $100 seems like a lot for, a Walmart brand. This is a pair of Time and True shoes, and these are that memory foam. To me, these kind of listings, there's a lot of listings out there like this for these flat shoes from different Walmart brands that are selling for $50 to $100. After looking through a lot of them, I'm not seeing anything like horribly alarming with the listing. Nothing weird in the description or the chat. I've seen other ones where they're pretty creepy, and it seems to be maybe a foot fetish. I mean, you look how worn those are. I don't know if that's why these are selling, why people are buying flats like this from a Walmart brand, for $60. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. So I'm not sure if that's what's going on there, but it is a little bit creepy. This is a Time and True. This was actually extra large. This is a knit sweater, very modern look. They're using some good keywords in here of cottage as well as log and look, and that one sold for $50. And then this is a really interesting seller because she does a lot of custom work, custom sewing jobs. And so she does have several of the Time and True jeans where she's done modifications. So you can see that it's there's a piece put in here at the bottom to make kind of a flare. And then that sold for $45. I'll show you a couple other of her interesting listings. So this is another one where, fabric was put in. It looks like a crushed velvet and lace. And then those sold for $45. And this is the seller if you're interested in to check these out. And I do have the sold items pulled up here, but you can see there's all different kinds. There's crocheted, where there's, crochet pieces sewn into those jeans. There's this top here where there's granny squares. So if you're that kind of person, or, even if you're just outsourcing and come across those types of items, there is a market for those. This next brand is another Walmart brand, Terra and Sky. That's the tag right there. And as far as I know, this brand is solely geared around those plus size items. And so this pair of shorts, this actually sold on eBay for $45. And this next one is a cardigan sweater. It looks like an open front with big pockets, cozy, and that was a 4X. So good reminder, again, keep your eye out for those bigger sizes. That one sold for $27. And then this is kind of a custom one that is a tie-dye. There's the tag on the inside, and that's a 1X. And then that one sold for $30. Over on Poshmark, there's, a handful of items selling. It is a little bit hard because there is some confusion with another brand that's called Sky. So this one actually got listed under that other brand, but it's actually Terra and Sky here, as you can see on the tag. That one is a 0X, and that one went for $25 just because it's a little bit more of a modern style. This next brand is a Target brand. brand, the Universal Thread. With this one, you're not going to see really any vintage or older items with this because the brand hasn't been around that long. So you're going to want to try and stick with coats and those bigger ticket items. So that one went for $40. It is a 2XL, as well as anything that's really currently trending. And so anything overalls, jumpsuits, that sort of thing, one piece outfits, those are going to sell for a little bit more. So that one sold for $40. It is a 1X. And then next here on eBay, I've got another sold here for you. This is probably one of the most interesting. This is a custom painted shirt or jacket, shirt jacket we'll call it. It's got a cat across the back. I'm going to see if I can zoom in on this. And it says cats against cat calls. If you're looking for other weird and interesting items that are selling, I will link to a video up here. If you've not seen this video, it's definitely worth watching if you're interested in other, just bizarre items like that. If you're the artist who did that work, I'm going to just apologize now. I don't mean to hurt your feelings, but a little weird. And then over on Poshmark, there's several custom jackets selling. Again, if you're not artsy, not crafty, just keep your eye out for these things. So this is a Kansas City Chiefs. I'm assuming this probably sold before the last Super Bowl. That one sold for $75. Another custom jacket here. And again, this is Universal Thread. So they just take a basic brand, add to it. That one sold for $75. This is another custom jacket that sold on Poshmark. You can see it's got some custom artwork there that was painted, as well as some studs that was put in there for a headband on this tiger. Yes, a tiger. They don't have a really good picture of the jacket overall. That's the front of it. So it's just a plain jacket. And then that tiger is painted on the back. And that one sold for $75. The next brand is another Target brand called A New Day. This is one that you generally, again, as with all of these in this video, you generally kind of want to stay away from. There's that tag. You can turn your head sideways if you want to read that. But that one sold for $45. So again, with this brand, I would go for those higher ticket items like their coats. There's another example of a coat that's sold on eBay, and that one sold for $45. You're going to notice that that is a 3X plus size there. Another sold item on eBay is this houndstooth plaid jacket. That one sold for $45. Over on Poshmark, this brand seems to be selling for a little bit higher dollar value. And that's that. There's a little bit better picture of that tag. Another houndstooth coat. And then that one sold for $80. And then another sale on Poshmark, I wanted to point out, this one is new without tags. So just it could be a good sourcing opportunity if you're at Target and you're able to pick something up cheap on clearance. This purse did sell for $71. And then the next item on Poshmark for that same brand is this leopard print coat. And this one actually sold for $72. Again, that brand being A New Day. The next brand is another Target brand, Mozimo. This is one that's been around for a long time. So with this one, there's actually quite a few vintage items. I do have the search results filtered or sorted by price, high to low. We're going to take a look at a few of these. This is a Elvis shirt. I'm going to zoom in on the tag there a little bit better so you can see that. You can kind of make out there. It says Mozimo. It's kind of a graffiti style writing. That one sold for $170. Definitely a rare find, but a valuable find if you come across that or something similar to that. This is a long suede coat. And let me see if I can zoom in on that tag there. It is 100% leather. And then that coat sold for $250. So this can, be very profitable if you come across this. This is another kind of unique item. So there's the tag there, Mozimo Supply, a little bit newer because it's printed there on the fabric. And then this is one that's actually as seen on item, as seen on Teen Wolf. And then that one sold for $80. And it does have 3 bids on it there. And if you do come across that, it is, again, one of those more rare finds, but it is something that there is a really good demand for, with 3 bids on it. I believe I do have another one to show you that sold possibly on Poshmark. This is another Mozimo jacket that's genuine leather, 100% genuine leather. You're typically going to see those leather items with their older items. That one sold for $88 on eBay. This is another interesting Massimo shirt. You can see how much wear there is around the neck. It's really very pretty worn there at the sleeve. That is what a single stitch looks like. So you'll see that here in the title where it says single stitch. That's an indication that's an older item, along with just what that tag looks like. And then that shirt in that condition sold for $100. This is a button-up jacket. That one sold for $80. And then I got another eBay sale here. This is another one of those leather 100% leather jackets. Actually, 65. This one sold for $65. And then a shearling lined coat. That's what that tag looks like there. It is an extra small. You can see there on the tag. And then that one sold for $65. And then shoes. So keep your eye out with this brand for shoes. You can see that these have quite a bit of wear there on the toes, quite a bit of scuffing on them, scuffing here on the back, scuffing here at the top, and then those sold for $60. Another, just kind of basic t-shirt, probably quite a bit of wear to that. It actually, now that I'm saying that, it does say that it has some stains on the armpits there in the description, but that one still sold for $70 even with armpit stains. Over on Poshmark, there's a lot of Massimo items selling. This one is another one of those Elvis shirts, and that one sold for $100 on Poshmark. This is a vintage bathing suit. It actually has Massimo across the chest. It does have a tag still attached, which is kind of crazy. And then that one sold for $95. And then this one is a Massimo baby doll sweater. So let me go ahead and zoom in on that tag for you there. So it probably looks very familiar with probably items that you've seen, if you've done any amount of sourcing. And that one sold for $85. So that's a good reminder that this baby doll keyword, this style of sweater where it's fitted and then flares out, that those are selling for a lot of money, even for, just kind of everyday run-of-the-mill brands. So $85 for that. And there are several of those selling for that price range. Now, the next brand that I had for kind of a use caution, usually don't source unless brand was Michael Kors. And that was specifically referring to their clothes. So I just kind of want to do a quick comparison with this one. I'm not going to point out specific items with this, but I do have priced high to low. And then I did put in a top price of $100. And so I'm just going to kind of quickly scroll through these, and you're going to see that there's not a lot of clothing, straight up clothing items selling. There's bags, there's shoes, but not a lot of just blouses. You're going to see mixed in here, there's going to be some dresses, but for the most part, it's handbags and, those shoes. Like we got a pair of boots here that sold for $100. And then I'm going to show you also on this one, I did set $50 for that top price point. And you got a few more clothing items mixed in here. We got a crossbody, and then it looks like a puffer coat there. It is hard to weed out those new with tags items. So those ones are both new with tags. We've got shoes, we've got a wallet, we've got, some more bags in here, some jewelry. But even at that $50 price point there, you're seeing a bundle of items, but you're not seeing a lot of other just clothing items. There's a dress there that went for $50, but it's mostly other kind of more accessory items. Here's even a scarf. So just be careful when it comes to Michael Kors. And then I'm going to show you over on eBay too, because this is going to be a little bit more apparent what I did here. So with this, again, I sorted price high to low, and there's some select items, that are selling for hundreds, even into the thousands of dollars, but they're going to be, very few and far between. This is a vintage runway, for example. That one says Endless Runway that sold for almost $1,000. Another runway item that sold for $2,500, got some bags in here that sold for $500. But then what I did here with eBay was to actually go price lowest, highest. And then you're going to see those items, that only sold for a couple of dollars. So we got, a shirt here that went for $2 with 3 bids, another one that got 8 bids on it that went for $3. Interestingly, this is probably one of the most interesting things I've seen. Somebody actually sold price tags. Now those sold for $1.50 plus $3 delivery, but for something that you were probably going to throw away anyway. But there's a lot of items, that are only selling for right around that $5 mark. We got, a button-up shirt there, men's shirt. That one went for $1.99 plus shipping. So there are definitely, items that you want to stay away from. It's a good reminder that usually when it comes to brands, you're not going to want to just source blindly, but you want to have that knowledge going into that brand before you make the purchase, how much you're able to get for that item. Next brand that we're going to be taking a look at is Liz Claiborne. And this is a brand that I consider to have kind of gone downhill over the years. So it used to be a pretty good brand that sold for quite a bit. Right now, less or so. So with this brand, you're going to see a lot of older items that are selling for the most money. And also, if you come across items that are, nicer material, or if they're knitted by hand. So this is an example here, the sweater that I'm going to show you, but I'm showing the tag first. It says Liz Claiborne and then knitted by hand. This one is 94% wool. See if I can zoom in on that. 5% silk, 1% other. That's what that sweater looks like. And then that one's sold on eBay for $100. This is another kind of vintagey item that is a hobo purse, and that one sold for $180. Another knitted by hand sweater here. This is a Nordic, so this one is 100% wool. You can make it out there on the tag, and definitely that Nordic look with this. Fair Isle is another good keyword to use here. And then that one sold for $89. This is a very vintagey looking Liz Claiborne tag. So I wanted to make sure to point that out. But this is actually a two-piece set with the jacket as well as the skirt. And then that one sold for $81. Another Liz Claiborne, this is a little bit newer tag, but this one sold for a little bit more money just because it has that kind of rainbow look to that item. And then that one sold for $80. Got another Liz Claiborne sweater here. I'm going to see if I can zoom in on that a little bit more. Definitely a unique item. And then that one sold for $70. Over on Poshmark, this is a suede jacket. Suede is really big this season. And so this one sold for $100 for that jacket. And then a couple of handbags to be able to show you on Poshmark as well. And this is a carpet bag. That one sold for about, $100 for that. Definitely a more vintage item. Another tapestry style crossbody purse, Liz Claiborne, and then that one sold for $100. But bags can be a really good money as well as sell quickly. This is another vintage Liz Claiborne. There's that tag there. It is 70% lamb's wool as well as 20% Angora. And then that one sold for $100. There's a good look at what that looks like. And then another Poshmark sale here, definitely a vintage item. It's got trees there knitted on that sweater. That's what that tag looks like. And then that one sold for $100. This next one is Ralph Lauren. And with this one, there's going to be a lot of items that sell on the very lower end. And when I was talking about this in brands not to source, I specifically mentioned certain items or certain lines within Ralph Lauren, because Ralph Lauren does have a lot of different items, a lot of different lines, from thousands of dollars all the way down to items that sell for just $1 or $2. So on that higher end, this is actually a really crazy sale here. So this is a skirt. And it's a wrap skirt. This one actually had 73 bids on it. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in on that there for you. It had 73 bids. And if you're seeing that price, it went for $9,099. That's what it ended at. Again, that's what that skirt looks like. So there are definitely items within this that are going to sell for a little bit more. That is what that tag looks like on this one. So it says Ralph Lauren Country and then authentic dry goods made in USA. So if you see tags made in the USA, that's a really good indication that that is going to be worth more money. Also, again, if you're seeing hand knit, if you're seeing wool and lamb's wool, so that one's 70% wool, lamb's wool, and definitely a unique design on this one. That one sold for $1,999.99. Another, really awesome sale here. This is definitely, one of those unique items. So double RL. You'll also see this labeled as RRL. That's another one of those tags that is definitely worth money if you come across that one. This item had 17 bids on it, and it sold for $2,000 or $2,001 is what that went for. A shearling lined leather jacket here. It's got those toggles on the front, long length. That one ended up going for 26 bids for $1,820. Let me go ahead and go back to that one because that is another one of those tags to definitely be on the lookout for with this. And that is here you can see it says double RL. So that is that tag. And then by comparison, to show you some of these items that are selling for a little bit less money, so you know what to stay away from. There's that tag there. It is a made in China item. That one went for $4. Another example here, another one of those polos, $4. A Ralph Lauren women's shirt. That's not to say that there's not good items within that label, but just, for a basic t-shirt like that, that went for 99 cents. And then this shirt here went for 1 cent with one bid on it. So a mistake there on the seller's part for pricing that, but probably wouldn't have gotten, too much more than that. Over on Poshmark, this is an interesting jacket. It's got some embroidery there on the back of a rodeo, long length jacket. And then that one sold for $2,000 on Poshmark. There's the tag there. A little clue here that this one is worth more money. I'm going to see if I can zoom in on that a little bit closer, but it does say made in Italy. So that is a country that usually, if you see that on items, it's usually an indication that that item will likely sell for more money. This is another interesting top. This one went for $1,500 on Poshmark. I'm going to see if I can get a closer up on the tag. This one's made in Hong Kong, but it's 100% silk. And, it's an extremely rare design. That one went, again, $1,500. This is another really interesting one. Let me go ahead and show you the tag here. So that's, it's just polo by Ralph Lauren. But it does say 100% cotton, hand knit. And then it does have what I believe to be the year on it. So that is what that sweater looks like. And that sold for $1,495. Got another, super unique sweater here. Any sweaters that you come across, by the way, that have this bear on them or have a flag on them, those usually will sell for a little bit more money. This is specifically a bear with national park, so definitely a more rare one. And then that one sold for $900. This next brand is another one that typically the older items do well. And so this is a pair of actually overalls, bibs. Those sold for $440. A jacket here. By the way, if you see anything that has Ferrari on it, so there's the label there, the logo there, as well as Ferrari there, even if it's some random brand, those items usually sell for, extra money just because of that name on it, whether it's Ferrari or another car brand that's similar to that luxury car brand. And then that jacket sold for $275 on eBay. Anything where you're seeing that big flag for Tommy Hilfiger, those will usually sell for a little bit more money. So this is just a pair of overalls that went for $239. Here's a interesting sweater, again, knitted 100% wool, and it looks like a fly fisherman. That one sold for $199. Another knit sweater with flags on it there. That one sold for $176. And anything where you're seeing that big spell out, so big letters, big words across the item, those are usually going to sell for a little bit more money because it's just a little bit older style. That's what the back of that one looks like. And that one sold for $170. Over here on Poshmark, and these are selling on eBay as well, but these types of pants are, can sell for $500 plus. That one went for $550. Got another one here for $650 that went for. Another one here for $550. Again, this is inspired by Aaliyah. That's why these are selling for this much. Another pair, similar pair that sold for $600. Jean jacket here. It's, again, got that big flag across the back. That one sold for $400. Another one of those big wide leg jeans. It's got, Tommy down one leg, jeans down the other leg. Again, I would use that keyword of spell out. That one sold for $400. A Letterman style jacket, varsity jacket, that one sold for $400. Interestingly, it is Timberland as well as Tommy Hilfiger. So $400 for that. A lot of these items are really inspired by pop culture. This brand is Juicy Couture. You want to, again, be very careful with these because there are items that will sell for $1. So it's easy to, maybe if you're sourcing off of a list, to pick up an item and go, oh, this is amazing. I just found this brand. But it's an item that might only sell for $1 or $2. So you definitely want to have that pro knowledge, that extra information before you go in and not just source blindly. Always look up those comps. I say that probably in every video. But with Juicy Couture, there's specifically two types of items that are pretty good bet to be able to turn around and sell. And one of them is their bags. So this is a bag. That one went for $1,000 on eBay. It is a hobo. It's also velour. They also use that keyword Y2K. So $1,000 for that. This is actually an interesting one. This is a jacket. There's what that tag looks like. That one is an extra small, by the way, and $1,030 with 42 bids on it. There were other items just like that on Poshmark selling for ridiculous amounts. So it's not just kind of a one-time thing. They are really selling for like, $1,000+ Another handbag here, kind of a bowling style. That one went for $675. Another handbag here with a drawstring around the top. That one went for $400 and basically $80. And then the other thing to be on the lookout for with this brand are their tracksuits, particularly their velour tracksuits. So this set for the jacket as well as the pants went for $295 on eBay. Got another little set here, and that one went for $250. Over on Poshmark, I did want to mention a couple men's items. So this is actually a jacket that was kind of as seen on The Big Bang Theory. So you're going to see Big Bang Theory, Leonard there in the title, and that one sold for $500. There were a few of these selling for that price. There's the jacket there again. Things like that are featured in my pop culture guide that I linked to a little bit ago. This is another men's item that is a fur lined jacket, and then that one sold for $160. There's lots of these selling for right around that price range. Here's another, little hobo style bag that one sold for $1,650. Lots of bags like this. A barrel bag, this one sold for $750. And then this next brand is Calvin Klein. Again, there's going to be items that only sell for a couple of dollars, and then at the other end of the spectrum, there's going to be brands that sell for, or there's going to be items that sell for much more. So this is a sequined dress, and you can make out there on the tag that it says made in the USA. So that's a really good indication. That's what that dress looks like there. But that's a really good indication that that item may sell for more money. So that one sold for $300. And it was right around that 2000 mark when a lot of companies ended up switching, out of the US into other countries. This is another US item that it actually says Union made there on the tag. It's kind of a little blurry, but you can kind of make it out there. And that is a merino wool jacket with fur trim. That one went for $295. So that's another pro tip there is to look for those union made tags. This is another older item. I'm not exactly sure on the date of this one. That's what that tag looks like. And they do have this marked as 1960s. I'm not, entirely certain on that. Just looking from it, I would say it's maybe a little bit newer than that just based on that label. But that one sold for $250. And then over on Poshmark, a few other tips to be able to identify those items that are going to sell for a little bit more money. Those leather items, if they're those nicer quality fabrics like we've talked about, I've mentioned multiple times in this video, this one is 100% leather. It looks like it's got a few marks in that leather, but that one sold for $100 for that skirt. This is a wool blend coat, so 80% wool, 20% nylon. There's what that looks like, houndstooth, and then that one sold for $100. Here's another example of a leather jacket, and then that one sold for $100. The other thing to be on the lookout for when it comes to Calvin Klein is if you see this string of letters and numbers, so it says 205W 39 NYC, those are going to sell for a little bit more just because that indicates that is a designer item. So that one went for $325. Here's another example of that, what it looks like on the tag. So Calvin Klein and then that number underneath, and then that one sold for $500. For those of you just wondering about that 205W39 NYC, that this is what it is a high-end designer label from Calvin Klein that was originally called Calvin Klein Collection. It was renamed to that number in 2017. And then Raf Simons, I believe is how you say that. You'll actually see that name in the title of a lot of listings. So just like this one here, that is actually in the title because that's something that buyers are going to be searching for. Thanks so much for watching this video. If you found it helpful, go ahead and give it a thumbs up, as well as consider subscribing to the channel. And don't forget to sign up for that free $100,000 reseller bootcamp. I know you can do that, and I'm so excited to help you get there. All right, if you're looking for more brands like this that are selling for shocking amounts, then you're going to want to make sure to check out my mall brands video, where I dive into a ton of different mall brands that are selling for incredible amounts. I will leave the link up here. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.